Beatrice, Garland and Kamikaze then, and the title of course refers to the Japanese fighter pilots from World War II who were given the dubious privilege, the dubious honour of being asked to fly their planes into enemy warships with obviously no chance of them surviving the wreckage. The whole idea, maximum destruction and a sacrifice for the nation. In this particular poem, Beatrice Garland reflects on a daughter of a kamikaze pilot who bottled it, basically, who set off on his mission and then had second thoughts and turned back again. And it's the result of this decision to turn his back on the glory that was dangled in front of him that motivates this poem. Now, Beatrice Garland isn't Japanese. She was never a fighter pilot. It wasn't her father she's writing about. She's placing herself in a situation, a fictitious situation, in order to understand what these people may have gone through. And she has spoken herself about what inspired this poem was actually 9/11 and the idea of the suicide bombers who gave themselves to that. That's what prompted her to think about this poem and think about this subject. So that's some stuff for the context for the AO3. And as previously, I'm going to go through the poem, read through it, and just pick out some of the ideas, some of the images, some of the techniques that Garland has used in this particular poem. So here we go, stanza 1. Her father embarked at sunrise with a flask of water, a samurai sword in the cockpit, a shaven head full of powerful incantations, enough fuel for a one-way journey into history. So we're at the point of view of, she's writing about a daughter, as I mentioned earlier. Notice the details of the symbolic samurai sword, of course associated with Japanese culture and the ritual harikari, the ritual suicide. The shaven head giving this sense of purity as he goes on his mission, something almost monk-like. Same with the powerful incantations that fill his head, almost as if he has, I wouldn't make it too strong to use the word brainwashed, but he has been sold a myth, sold an idea that this one-way journey into history in the sense that this is his death, but history in the sense that he will be remembered in the history books for the gift of his life that he gave to his nation. Notice here that we don't have any full stops. We've got enjambment. We go straight into stanza 2, but the word but begins stanza 2. There is a problem. Halfway there, she thought. Now notice, very important, she thought. Beatrice Garland is, imagining herself, what she thinks this daughter may herself have imagined as she tells the tale to her own children, as she sort of comes to terms and reckons with this shameful story in her past. He must have looked far down. Again, there is an ambiguity to there. She is guessing, she is assuming, she is placing herself in his, from his perspective, through the power of imagination. As he looks far down at the little fishing boat strung out like bunting on a green-blue translucent sea. And what he sees as he looks down, this pilot, it reminds him of his own past, but he sees the beauty of nature. We get lots of images like that simile strung out like bunting, like the sensual, colourful imagery of the green-blue translucent sea. So he sees the wealth, the riches of the natural world that he's being asked to turn his back on. Beneath them, arcing in swathes. So this beautiful imagery, like a huge flag waved first one way, then the other in a figure of 8. Another simile, another image of nature's wonders, the dark shoals of fishes, flashing silver. Again, it's flashing silver. It's wealthy, it's beautiful as their bellies swiveled towards the sun. Again, we still keep going without a full stop here. And the way in which she's doing this reminds us that this is an anecdote that's being recounted here. And remember into stanza 4 how he and his brothers waiting on the shore built cairns of pearl grey pebbles to see who's withstood longest the turbulent inrush of breakers bringing their father's boat safe. So now she's imagining what was going on in her father's mind, and perhaps as he looked down, it took him back to his own childhood, to his own memories. So we've got memories within memories here. Again, the beauty of the natural imagery, pearl grey pebbles, the word pearl with its connotations of something wealthy, a jewel, something valuable. We go into stanza 5. Yes, grandfather's boat. And that little parenthetical comment in hyphens reminds us that she's speaking to her own children. She tells them this tale. Grandfather's boat. It gives it that natural conversational feel. Safe to the shore, salt-sodden, awash with cloud-marked mackerel. And then we get this asyndetic list of fish. Cloud-marked mackerel, black crabs, feathery prawns. Again, the adjectives, the pre-modifiers, black, cloud-marked, feathery, loose silver of whitebait. Again, wealth, imagery, something precious. A tuna, the dark prince, this metaphor to describe tuna. You know, who doesn't love a tuna sandwich? I'd personally consider the dark prince of all fish. Muscular, dangerous. We go into stanza 6. And though he came back, so this is where everything turns. So we have this moment now. We have had a full stop there at the end of stanza 5, and the mood, the tone changes because he's set off on this glorious mission. He's looked down, but he's seen the wealth of the natural world. It's reminded him of his own childhood, and he doesn't want to surrender his life yet. He came back. My mother never spoke again in his presence. I mean, consider the consequence, the significance of that. His own wife basically went stum, did not speak in his presence again, nor did she meet his eyes, and the neighbours too. They treated him as though he no longer existed. He becomes an outcast. He becomes invisible. He becomes this kind of spectre, this ghost in his own life. He has died within his life. Only we children still chattered and laughed. So at least his kids still have a little modicum of respect for him. That is until stanza 7. So gradually we too learned to be silent. So they see what their elders are doing. They say the way they are shunning their father, and they learn to follow suit, to live as though he had never returned, that this was no longer the father we loved. So he's made a decision, to stay with them, and they have shunned him as a thank you. Not very grateful. And sometimes, she said, he must have wondered which had been the better way to die. Again, we get another full stop there at the end of the 4th line in stanza 7, and just one relatively short sentence for this poem. He must have wondered which had been the better way to die. In other words, the decision he made not to commit suicide was in itself a form of death, of social death, of family death. And he has to live with the shame. There's a sense of her reckoning here with what she'd done, perhaps a sense of guilt at the way she's turned her back on him now that she tries to understand what he went through. So that's Beatrice Garland, Kamikaze, poem week 3. See you soon.